The board discussed the terms of a student matter, item 2.5, regarding student number 18-02, and we voted a vote 5-0 to uphold the stipulated expulsion agreement. So that's what happened in closed session. I wanted you guys to notice that we have a little loose balloon up in the ceiling that might set off the fire alarm. So if that happens, you don't have to evacuate. Chris will turn it off. Okay, so attendance roll call, Clerk Reed.
Here.
Trustee Lopez. Trustee Maxfield. Trustee Galindo.
Here.
And our new student representative. And we're going to talk about you in a minute. And President Ellerson. All right, if everybody doesn't mind standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, so I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda if there's no changes to the agenda? No? Okay, so I'm looking for a motion. And we'll read the district mission statement. We are a collaborative, culturally rich educational community where a rigorous and innovative curriculum prepares our students to be successful contributors to our global society. And we're starting off with 4.1 now that the honoree is in the room. The Board of Education recognizes students, employees, or members of the community who have received recognition for academic or athletic achievement or who have made significant contributions of any kind to our district. So tonight we're going to be recognizing Miss Genevieve Walsh.
You know I'm doing it so I can thoroughly embarrass you.
So I just want to say a few things about Genevieve. Not getting off easy. A student of Calistoga Schools. Very, very dedicated. She's done coaching. She's been part of the Education Foundation. She's a dedicated parent volunteer. And she let the district use one of her wineries the other day for meetings.
The only winery.
Currently the only winery. To let us do, which was a great contribution to the district, but she does so much for the district, and I just want to take a moment just to recognize how amazing. Full of energy, and that's what keeps us all going.
I feel very privileged, just like we all do. I'm privileged. And I did go here. My name is on the green blanket. Years ago. No, okay.
And I just want to hop in because Genevieve, you have two kids at our school, CES. And I just say you are just everything that is the Calistoga community spirit. Whenever we need something done, you always jump in. You have great energy. You're on our site council. And just thank you for everything you do for our elementary school.
You too.
Okay. 5.1 is public business from the floor. Oh, shoot. Sorry, Craig. That's good. So, go ahead. You tell us what you're going to do.
Well, it is with great honor that I get to present some awards to the families and to the kids that were here today. Our junior high team wants to honor our students. These are our student learning outcomes. It's spelled CATS. And each one has significant meaning to our students, our staff. And our staff felt it was really important to single out and recognize students who epitomize one or more of those slow, just start going backwards. So I'm going to present these awards in groups, and the first group is for achievement. I'd like to call it Aaron Heath, if that's possible. So achievement, as you can see, states realizing personal and academic goals. Our next one is attitude, which is developing a positive approach to life and learning, and we have quite a few students who we're going to recognize for that. The first one is Manny Chavez. Paloma Lopez. The next, actually, you have two. She's also overall student of the month, too. Next for attitude is Nathan Link. Is Nathan here? Well, Nathan is also our student of the month, too, which is pretty exciting. So he's receiving 2 awards. The next for attitude is Gage Bradford. Next for attitude is Excel Garcia. Excel Garcia, thank you. Shannon here, come on. Now for aspiration. An aspiration is embracing choices that lead to greatness. Ivan Martinez. Another student for aspiration, who is Alexis Vasquez. Ashley Clavel. Grace Galindo for aspiration. Softball practice, okay. Our next is communication. Communication, sharing ideas clearly. Oscar Maldonado. Next is collaboration. Working together cooperatively. Evelyn Garcia. Daisy Robles. Our next is for scholar, and that is the evolution of lifelong learner. Sean Birch. Is Sean here? And the last word is for tenacity, the relentless pursuit of goals and dreams. Alejandro Cortez. I'd like to give another round of applause for all of these students.
A little closer if you guys don't mind. No. Excellent.
Thank you.
So obviously, if you guys are ready to go after that, you're more than welcome to sit.
Thank you.
Or you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
I'll be first.
I've been here way too long.
To the families, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you so much for coming.
big thank you to Ms. Heck, who's in the audience, for helping pull all these together. And it's a team effort on the part of the junior high staff, but we want to thank her for making this happen.
Okay, now the whole crowd's gone, but I'm still going to say this. Public business from the floor, non-agendized items. This portion of the agenda allows for an individual opportunity to address the board on any item regarding board business that's not on the agenda without taking action or entering into dialogue with the public. Board members may briefly respond to statements made or ask clarifying questions about topics posed by the public. Your matter may be referred to administration. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Anybody? Okay, so on to 6.1.
All right, good evening. So we're going to present tonight on some of the interventions that are happening for our students at our sites. And you're going to hear from Nicole and Craig on what's happening at the elementary school and then what's happening at the junior senior high school. And before we do that, I'm going to present a little bit of framework for how interventions are envisioned and delivered district-wide. No, let's get rid of all of them for a minute. So we use a format called response to intervention, RTI. Over the years, that's kind of evolved into response to intervention and instruction, or RTI squared. And the pyramid gives us a good representation visually of how this functions. In Tier 1, these are services that all students have access to. So 100% of students get these things or have access to them. And it's labeled as core classroom instruction. It's probably a little more than that. All students get high-quality, research-based, current instructional practice. All students have high expectations, school-wide behavior systems, and school-wide assessments. When that happens, the majority of students are successful. They gain skills and they make progress, and they get prepared for the next grade and then ultimately college and career. And when we look at school-wide assessments, we see that. But we also see that there is a percentage of students that when they have access to that, they aren't successful and they need something more. And so when we identify those students, we provide them with Tier 2 interventions. And these are small group targeted interventions. So if you have 25, 30 students in a classroom, you might have 5, 10, or 15 in a targeted intervention group. They're extended time on task, so if a student gets 45 minutes a day of English, a student in a Tier 2 intervention might get 90 minutes. They might get that 45 minutes, but then an additional period of time. In a Tier 2 intervention, students get direct instruction on the identified skill where they are struggling. So if it's an English instruction, once they get into the intervention, it's much more specific, and you'll see some of that in the presentations that are coming. And typically in a different instructional mode. So if they're getting one type of instructional mode in a classroom, in the intervention it's something different. Maybe it's computer-based and individualized, maybe it's more hands-on, but it should be a little bit different to help them see success. And then when we look at the assessment data, we know that with Tier 2 interventions, many of those students are successful, most of those students. But then there is also a percentage of those students that's not. And they need something even more. And that's what we talk about Tier 3 interventions. These are intensive individual interventions. They usually involve an adult support team or planning team. So you've got a group of adults with the student family to create an individualized plan for that student. Typically incentives-based, we know these students benefit from more reinforcement when they make growth. And they also may require those. They use a specialist, special education teacher, or school psychologist. But not all special ed interventions, but some of them are. So this is the general framework And so when you hear the presentations tonight, you'll see how these fit into it, but there's value in kind of seeing that bigger picture as we get into very specific interventions that are happening at your site, what's working and what's not. So yeah, advance that. And we're going to hear from Nicole about Kelso Elementary School.
Well, good evening, everyone. Hopefully this works. So I'm here tonight to talk about the interventions happening over at Calistoga Elementary School. And just to give you a little bit of background, as this is my third year there, back in 2015-16, we had intervention. We were doing small group instruction. We were using Lexia to support English language arts, Dreambox to support math. We had small group instruction happening by paraeducators, and really we didn't have, the system was kind of being built and run at the same time with regard to SSTs. And just to take a step back to clarify, SSTs stand for Student Study Team, and that's when a teacher is exhausting interventions within their sphere of control, and then they come forward to the team and say, let's meet and talk about the student. Then in 16 and 17, we did the following activities. We did some training in Lexia and Dreambox. We had 75 SST meetings, and for some kids it was one meeting. Other students it was 2 or 3 meetings over the year. We did start to do placement in Tier 3 RTI intervention, and we continued our use of paraeducators for small group instruction. Then last year, we did some voluntary training in Lexia and Dreambox. We had 70 SST meetings, so it went down a little bit. Placement in Tier 3 intervention with RTI, continued use of paraeducators, and also because we applied for and received Title I monies, we were able to offer 1 round of after-school tutoring. So here's what went well. We had some nice first steps in refining the SST process. Tutoring did overall impact retention data, particularly in kindergarten and first grade. And when we're talking about retention, we do have students go on remediation agreements. We look for targets to decide if they're going to be ready for the next year. And so those grades really targeted their tutoring to help those students. And then we also had positive growth on the Smarter Balanced assessments, particularly in mathematics. And here were our challenges, is that although Lexia and Dreambox offer differentiated instruction, it is through it's an online application. It's basically a student being placed via placement tests and doing activities on either an iPad or a Chromebook. And so we saw that some students still needed instances of explicit instruction. And through the SST process, we noted that we didn't have really an articulated Tier 2 system of intervention. So when we were starting to see students who were struggling academically, we were kind of jumping to the Tier 3, RTI, and there was really not a lot in between. So starting this year, with that Title I money, we were able to have a teacher on special assignment with a focus on K-3 intervention. The research really shows that when you intervene in the younger grades, it's going to have more success. We had continued small group instruction by classroom teacher and paraeducator. We have after-school tutoring. I'm really glad to say that we're actually going to do 2 rounds this year. So we're finishing our first round of tutoring the week of March 18th, and then on April 8th, we're starting our second round of tutoring. And we have about, you'll see in a minute, but about 75 students participating in that. So our teacher on special assignment intervention is focused for K-3, although I'll talk about in a minute, we had to go a little outside to see some other data that we're addressing, and focus on reading support. So the area of focus for our teacher on special assignment, grade K, we decided that the first trimester we were not going to do tier 2 intervention. Grade 1 focused on phonics, grade 2 focused on phonics and fluency, and grade 3 focused on phonics and fluency. Of the students who participated, as you can see, kindergarten is still NA because they didn't do trimester 1. Grade 1, we had 6 students start in the Tier 2 reading program. We had 2 exit to Tier 1. That meant she kept the other 4, but we did not have any move forward to Tier 3 and looking at like special education eligibility. In grade 2, we started out with 16 students. We had 8 exit, that's 50%, and we had 1 student go to Tier 3. In grade 3, we had 17 students in Tier 1, or sorry, excuse me, in Tier 2. We had 4 students exit to Tier 1 and 2 students go into Tier 3. And so what I note on the data is that we're having more students going back to Tier 1 than going up into Tier 3. The grade 3 students, those 2 had quite a few SSTs, quite a few looks at their data. So it wasn't like, hey, we're going to try 1 round of Tier 2 and now we're going up the pyramid. So right now the successes, this was after trimester 1. We have less remediation agreements. 14 total of our students moved back into Tier 1, the students receiving Tier 2 services. And by having this Tier 2, it also is supporting our tutoring efforts because teachers can look now student by student and say, okay, this student is getting this instruction during the instructional day, what should be our focus after school? The challenges is that we started to see with the 3rd grade is that those students who were really given that reading foundation explicit instruction, their need changed to more of needing support with comprehension. And remember, this is a testing grade. There's a lot of reading we have to do on the Smarter Balanced, and so we needed to change that focus. We also knew that we needed to get our kindergarten groups going. We still have a high percentage of students with IEPs. We're running at about 13.1%. And we have, and this actually was updated yesterday, and it's going to be updated again. We now have 7 newcomer students, grades K through 6, who've entered. Some of the primary ones we can address in those Tier 2 reading groups, but we also have a pretty significant group in the upper grades that we had to consider. And then we still have students in grades 4 through 6 who have academic needs. So trimester 2, the focus for kindergarten is letter, sound, and blending. Grade 1 is phonics and fluency, very similar to what they did the trimester before. Grade 2 is phonics and fluency. Grade 3 switched to comprehension. And then various grades, we have what we call a newcomer group. From a scheduling perspective, because this is Tier 2 and because it is funded by Title I, this has to be above and beyond instruction. So all of the students are in English language arts. They get additional time with the Tier 2 teacher. So right now, here are our numbers. I do not have our kids exiting, as this week we're doing our release days. So as of right now, we have 12 kids being served in Tier 2 for trimester 2. First grade is 5, you can see that's a reduction. Second grade is 7, third grade is 12, and then we have these 6 students who are considered the newcomer group. So that's what's going on during the instructional day, and then now we are hitting the tail end of our after-school tutoring program. We offer it grades K through 6, which is an expansion from previous years. We are having it done by certificated teachers, and I'm very grateful to my staff when I've come forward and said, hey, we have a round of money available for tutoring. They discuss it as a grade level, and they figure out how to offer it, because we are offering it 3 days a week for about an hour, so 3 hours a week of tutoring for students. The other thing that we did notice, because we do release days, is that each grade level has a different focus, because how students perform on testing, and the grade level standards obviously are different grade by grade, and so the grade levels meet together and determine what they want as their focus for that 10-week cycle. And about 75 students receive tutoring on our campus. In terms of the focus for the first round, kindergarten focused on letter sounds and numbers, and I think they're really trying to target those students on remediation agreements. First grade does phonics fluency and Lexia support. Second is comprehension. Third is working on multiplication and division. So you can see there's some differences among these groups. Fourth is working on multi-step problem solving and fractions and guided reading. Fifth also has mathematics focus, and I believe theirs is on percentages right now. And sixth, and I have a little star there, is for homework support. And as you're aware, our sixth grade adopted the same materials as they've adopted over at the junior senior high school. Many of the curriculum that they use is very online based, and so what we found is that for students that were having difficulty getting their homework done, we actually made the exception there, and we do have them coming in, and they are getting targeted assistance with like math or with getting their projects done in English language arts, but they also really need access to a computer in order to keep up with the homework requirements in their class. And so we do have some students that we say, you really need to go to this, and we make sure that they get signed up, but we also do open it up for sixth grade students who might need extra help. And so really our next steps is that right now, this week, we're continuing to do our data meetings, grades K through 6, and also special education next week. We're going to be looking at our reading intervention groups for trimester 3. We're working on our second cycle of tutoring set to begin right after spring break. We're continuing to address SSTs. We're really working hard to make sure that when we have our first SST, we're scheduling the second one immediately after. And the other aspect we're looking at is addressing RTI and teacher training, and that really came out of feedback from our last PD day in February. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Craig. Sure.
Yeah, I have some questions for you, but I'm not going to ask all of them. First, the newcomers, are they entering our schools at different times of the year, or how is that at the beginning of the school year?
Okay, so to clarify, what a newcomer student is considered is a student who is brand new to California schools, coming from outside of the United States, who this is their first experience in public schools. So I just want to clarify who these students are, because I didn't do a very good job of that in the presentation. When we have newcomer students, they come all around the year. So it's a very hard group to say, oh, I think we're going to get this many students. In the past, Calistoga really got very few. We would maybe get 1, 2, or 3 a year. 6 is quite a bit, and we're looking at 7. And of those students, we have, I believe, 4 of them who are in grades 4 through 6. So when we do get a newcomer student, we have to do an initial assessment in their English language proficiency. What does tie all these students together is that they are considered to be very new in their learning of English. And then the other piece too is that we also, with this newcomer group, they have to be in designated ELD with the classroom teacher because that is considered to be core. And then they go to this newcomer group as an additional support.
What are we doing for, in terms of intervention for grades 4 to 6? You mentioned that is the after-school tutoring or the after-school program, but let's say a 6th grader who have very difficulties with comprehension, language arts and all that. What are we doing?
So in grades 4 through 6, you are correct, tutoring is one option. Also, grades 4 through 6 will regroup their students for designated ELD. And so what we do in each of those grades is that for an hour period for 4 days a week, they are regrouped based on their English language proficiency and also combined with where they're at with their reading. And so those students are getting differentiated instruction. And then we use the tutoring time to again hit with another shot. Right now we are looking at we had a very careful conversation with our 3rd grade group because those students are going to be exiting, going into 4th grade. An asset that these students are bringing is that their reading foundations are really solid. But when we are going to be doing our designated ELD next year, we are going to have to address that group that needs help with comprehension. So it's a stronger cohort who's coming in because of the intervention, and it's my hope that over time, as we get this established and institutionalized for that primary intervention, that the intervention needs of the students moving forward are going to be, there's still going to be a need for intervention, but I'm hoping that those gaps for them are going to be less.
So you're talking about intensive explicit instruction, and you're also talking about paraprofessionals running small groups, instructional small groups. What sorts of training is the district or the school providing to these paraprofessionals other than the usual ones?
So my understanding is that before I came to CES, that when Calistoga Elementary School was working to get out of program improvement, which was our old accountability system, that they did quite a bit of training with paraeducators on helping students with reading intervention. When we're talking about our paraeducators, we're talking about obviously classified staff members. They work under the direction of the classroom teacher. They're not going out on their own or doing direct instruction of students. The training that we have given our paraeducators this year that I can speak to, because our focus has been on restorative practices, that is the training that they've received and the support that they have received. But when we do move forward, like for example, when we're looking at RTI, we do need to include those paraeducators in that training. And I know that last year when we looked at, when we were working with CSEA, that was something that they requested, is just that ongoing, what is our training going to be this year? So we have been trying to address that.
I just have one. So it being our first year of our RTI squared, and we have no classification for our 4th to the 6th graders, any students that might be in, say, tier 2, say a 5th grader that remains in that category, if they were categorized, is there communications with your dad sharing with the junior high to identify these kids with their needs in whatever class it might be, either math, English, and if so, to identify these kids, is there a way in 4th and 5th grade that are we identifying the kids with greater needs now?
Well, so there is a combination of things. First of all, working backwards because 6th grade goes on to 7th grade. What we've been doing over the last, I believe, month and a half with the junior senior high school is that our 6th grade teachers have provided initial placement data to the 7th grade teachers for next year so that they can prepare for how many sections they're going to need of English language arts, intervention in English language arts, math, and possibly intervention in math as well. What we also do with our 4th, 5th, and 6th grade classes is that, and we're doing our data meetings right now, is we really do look student by student and we ask, how are they responding right now to designated ELD? Are we seeing growth? Are we not seeing growth? If we're not seeing growth, why not? And really from there, if we're seeing a student really struggling and they are in the SST process, we're going to keep doing that SST process to get them extra support. We also do have quite a few students, though, that within the designated ELD have some very nice jumps in their data as well. So it's really just keeping on that conversation of what is the name and the need of each student. And then, as I said, we are communicating with the junior senior high about placement for next year.
Mark, that's a really good question. Because you're right, it's important. We're not a very big district, right? There's only 2 school sites. And with our students who have an IEP, we do what's called a transitional IEP from one school to the next. Where the team gets together, they talk about the students' needs based upon whatever their disability is. But in a small school setting like we have here, it doesn't preclude us from having a meeting with our 7th grade team and our 6th grade team and talking about each individual student. Which would take some time, but it wouldn't be too difficult to organize. So that's actually a really great idea. This is this child in the 6th grade. These are things we're seeing. Here's some of their gifts and abilities, and these are some of the areas they struggle with, just so that the staff is aware of it. We can have almost like a forum to talk about the students. But then also, too, you're worried that are we labeling students too much by doing this? Do teachers have a preconceived notion of who their child is? But I don't think so. I think our staff is really with desire to have that communication. So our intervention supports, we're going to talk mostly about tier 2 and 3, but what I want to do is talk a little bit about tier 1. And that's what happens in the classroom. At our school, our teachers are really committed to providing high quality instruction for every student, all students. That's one of their charges. They design units and lessons that address the needs of all students and provide differentiation and additional support as appropriate. They differentiate the curriculum for those students. Our teachers...
There we go.
Okay, well, we're not going to
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. Our teachers use formative assessment data to inform instruction. Our staff use interim assessment to evaluate where students are in their learning progress, determine where they are on track to performing well on future assessments such as standardized tests and end-of-year course exams. Our teachers meet more frequently with students who require additional support, making adjustments to their instruction as needed. Almost every single one of our teachers is available break, lunch, after school. If a student asks, they're always available. They're very, very committed to the people. And I'm sure it's the same way too with Nicole's staff and team and her side. Our teachers form authentic, meaningful relationships with the students. Which is, if we're talking about intervention, we have to take into consideration not just those things that are academic, but we have to talk about social and emotional. Because without those, right, as those needs, without those basic needs aren't met, it's very difficult for our students sometimes to learn. I just in my office today, right? Struggling in a couple classes, talking to me. Where does that, I talk about, well, what's your room like? It's organized. And his mom says, well, he doesn't have one. Every night, they bring a mattress out and put it in the kitchen floor, and that's where he sleeps. He doesn't have a bedroom. Doesn't have a quiet place to shut the door to study and work. So those are challenges our kids face on a daily basis that we as our staff are aware of, and by developing those authentic relationships, it helps provide a more positive climate of support and encouragement in the classroom. Okay, I just want to share that tier 1 aspect. I'm not going to talk about tier 2. So a little background. Nicole did that too. So when I first came to the site, one of the things I noticed right away was our kids out on the covered area, around the senior quad, working on devices and so on. And I found out, well, a lot of our families don't have internet access. So one of the things we tried to do right away was we tried to get the library open. And so we were able to do that. We opened up our library until 5:30, and that took place in 2016 and 17. We offer bilingual tutoring. We have one of our paraprofessionals working there. Our district supported increased Mentis therapist hours, which is the social and emotional aspect. Our IIN and MDT were administered in terms of the intervention needs. We had one Re180 course was offered and 2 high school Re180 courses. Now, to go back to Nicole's presentation, kudos to the elementary school, because we have less students coming to us with Re180 intervention and math intervention needs. So we're seeing a reduction of our 6th graders coming in that have the need to take Re180 or some type of math intervention. So great job at the elementary school. And as we know, intervention takes a while, right? So sometimes you don't see the immediate results, but we're starting to see it with the students coming into us. I started this thing called the English Language Acquisition Plan. It doesn't mean anything, I kind of made it up, but what it is basically is an opportunity for our newcomers, our parents, students, counselor, our EL coordinator, and the family center to sit around and help the families understand what is the educational process, what is it like to be a student, be a family in an American school if they come from different countries. And I got this idea because New York City does it with a lot of their refugee families from Syria and so on. So it's been a great thing. Our EL coordinator now does it on, and whenever there's a newcomer that comes in, within 2 or 3 week time period, she has a ELAP meeting set up for those families. Because we want to know all the services the Family Center can provide for those families, what services we can provide for those newcomers, and what's grading, ABC, and so on. What does this all mean, right? How does everything work? So that's kind of an introduction to our school system. And kudos also to Nicole's schools, 75 SSTs. That's pretty amazing, 75. We did 14 in 2016-17 with no follow-up SSTs. After school credit recovery was mandated for any student who was in danger of not graduating. And of course, next year we had 100% graduation, which was really good. Then in 17-18, we maintained the number of hours for Mentis therapist hours. We released our EL coordinator to continue working with our newcomer families and then push into classrooms and help where needed. We switched from the MDTP to the MI, and RI were administered to student placement in those intervention classes. We continue with the after-school bilingual tutoring. We increased from 1 to 2 high school Re180 courses were offered, and then 2 junior high Re180 courses were offered. So for Re180, student placement was reviewed at the end of the fall semester, and students showed significant improvement. They were excellent, right? It was a reward. You improved in your reading, you were spending more time reading, so which was great for those students because now they got to take an elective because maybe they didn't have an opportunity to take an elective before, and now they could at semester time. One strat math course was offered, and no high school junior math classes were offered. And then unfortunately, we did not have library support after school. And so at times the library was closed, it just didn't happen. Continuing with the English language acquisition needs, and after school credit recovery was mandated for any student who was in danger of not graduating. And like I said earlier, we had 100% graduation. SSTs, you can see we moved up from the initial amount, now we're doing 28. And what was new was we had refined the SST process and the forms, things we did. And the other thing was we started doing a follow-up SST. Our school counselor, Mr. Craig Morales, organizes all the SSTs. And this has been great. So it's not a one and done. It's one, and then here's a plan. And the plan is not only just for the student and for the staff, it's also for the parents. Bring everybody back together again. Are you following the plan? Are you keeping up with the plan? Let's reevaluate the plan. What do we need to do to make sure that we keep showing growth and improvement? Okay, this year, once again, we maintain the Mentis therapist hours. Again, we're offering bilingual tutoring after school in the library. And then we're now offering tutoring in math, science, and English. And of course, ACE is another place where our students get tutoring after school. And then we've also, through a separate grant, we have an avid tutor we're paying out of our budget to stay after school in a smaller environment to help students too. So we basically, on any one day, we have 3 or 4 different classrooms on campus where tutoring is taking place. We fortunate. We decreased the number of Re-1A sections from 2 to 1 this year, but we maintained the 2 junior high Re-1A classes. Next year, I don't think we're going to need to have 2 junior high Re-1A classes. We might just need to have 1. Like I said, positive results coming from CES. So Re-180 History and Math placement was reviewed in the fall semester, and again, students were exited, increased from 1 to 3 junior high strategic math classes, and we increased from 0 to 2 high school strategic math classes. And some of that is because we defined our criteria for what student really is appropriately paced for high school strategic math. And with that, we wanted to capture more students who needed that intervention. So with clarifying that, we were able to do that. And plus, with your support, we have more math sections this year. We will provide that. We're a small school. We don't have the teachers to teach the sections, and we can't offer them. Now we do, which is fantastic. RI and MI are administered to determine student placements, continuing the ELAT meetings. After-school credit recovery was mandated for students who were in danger of not graduating. And then an added thing that came out of some of our avid teachers was, as you know, part of our dashboard, right? We want to get a good dial over on our dashboard. We need more students to be A through G completers. So we have quite a few students who are in our after-school credit recovery program who are remaking classes to get D's and F because we want them to all be A through G ready. And so it's one of the things we're paying for out of our budget and trying to support. And then this year so far, we're up to 13 initial and 7 follow-up assistants. Okay, successes and challenges for Re-180. And so we had successes, measurable growth in both Lexile levels. What's awesome about Re-180 and the Lexile is the students get immediate feedback when they get done taking the test. And they're very happy. I heard from one of our English teachers, one of the students called them over, come over, take a look, Mr. Cruz, look what I did here. And they're excited about seeing their progress on their, Lexile. It really is something that's immediate for them. You can see they jumped up this month. So we saw positive growth in our Smarter Ballot assessment in 7th and 8th grade. We have a decreased number of high school sections in Re-180, more feedback for students and parents on their progress. The Re-180 score should be sent home. Challenges, need for longer periods. Re-180 was not designed for a 55-minute period. It was designed for a longer period. It's 3 rotations. To do those 3 rotations, it takes more than just 55 minutes. So that's one of the struggles and challenges. And then coming up with the criteria within our English Language Arts Department, and that criteria, I think they've developed that and honed that, and that will help determine next year's placement. Okay, successes and challenges for math intervention. Of course, more instructional time. What we're seeing is with those added teachers, we have more strategic classes, it gives more students time in class. So some students might have an algebra class plus a math support class. Same thing in 7th and 8th grade. We're seeing smaller class sizes, which is fantastic, smaller instructional groups. We have instruction target appropriate level, constant measuring of students' progress, constant, and then staff meeting to talk about that, and then if need be, spiraling back to those areas that need to be retaught, gone over again, and so on. More feedback from students and parents on the progress. We're informing parents, notifying them of this. And then challenges, defining the best approach for our math intervention class. We have a model that we've created, and at the end of the year, our hope is that we're going to see some progress with that model. If we don't see progress, then we're going to have to relook at a different model, because that model is not working. And that's the great thing about constantly getting that feedback. We are seeing some positive results, but what we want to see is dramatic results. Staff development in math, we'd like to see more staff development in, like you talked about, Indira, meaning that for not only our paraprofessionals, but for all our teachers in this targeted areas. And that's really important. Okay, here's some recommended steps. So as a board, if you start thinking about what you would like to do, I would strongly continue to offer Re-180. I think that's really something that we're seeing good results from, and it's something that's really positive. Research on our math intervention programs for a more successful model and implement that model in the 1920 school year. So we need to continue researching different intervention programs in math. We don't have a math paraprofessional. I don't know if you remember Jerome. He was one of our math paraprofessionals. He was worked with the students who have IEPs in the classroom and sometimes with other students. That position no longer exists. Hasn't for a couple of years, and that is in high need for our classrooms, especially for our students with an IEP. More staff development in the areas of English and math literacy for all curricular areas, increasing hours of Mentis therapists. We have a huge waiting list for students who need therapeutic support. They're languishing there on a list someplace, and we're not providing them for those students. Increase the number of days of after-school tutoring. We'd like to be able to find funding to be able to do that. From one day of math to at least 2 days, 1 day of science to at least 2 days for science. Currently we have 2 days for English. And return to a block schedule, I think would be fantastic. Continue to release English language arts and math teachers to data dive and Sprout back when needed. Continue library hours, after school bilingual tutoring. What's been great about having the library open is we have an amazing, you know Lourdes, she's fabulous, she's bilingual, she's in there, she came to one of our PD days about some of the things we're doing. She didn't have to be there, she volunteered to come in, and she participated in it, and now she's practiced those things with the students, and she's really good about communicating with specific teachers. And then Judy Gonzalez, one of our paraprofessionals, is in there also. And we want to continue to work on parent communication and student recognition. We spend a lot of time and energy on those interventions, but we don't do enough of what we saw tonight. It's not happening enough. And it takes time and it takes energy for someone to do it, so we've got to figure out an approach to do that. And then I think it's needed sometimes a mandatory 8th period. For some of our students, going to tutoring is voluntary. We ask parents to involve them, but I think maybe there gets to be a point when we have students maybe in a certain grade level or in danger of not graduating and say, I'm sorry, I know tutoring is optional, but we're going to start requiring you to go to an 8th period class. And that's where you're going to go. You need to work on homework, you get your work done in there, and it's really important. So we got to figure out a way to develop a staff member who's willing to stay after school, maybe come in a little late in the morning, and not have first period class, to teach that 8th period class. And be there to help be that guide on the side of the student. Questions?
The second question that I have for you regarding the students and newcomers. Are you connecting them to the programs that, this is a little bit different, but connecting them to the programs that migrant education offers? They do have great resources in terms of helping these students who are kind of getting used to the system.
I appreciate you asking. I didn't put up there. Part of the ELAP meetings is Cecilia Sanchez, who's our Margaret head. She comes to those meetings and she shares all the different services. She's at our school probably way more than she is supposed to be, but she's super involved with her kids, and she's super involved with families, and she brings kids out of class, and she almost is like another counselor to the children. And also, too, she's also created a speech and debate team, and we talked about that they're going on to, and it's a way for these kids to shine, even though they're newcomers and part of my event. It's kind of amazing. So part of the ELAP process is involving parents and giving them all the information, what that Valley Center can provide, what Migrant can provide, what we can provide. It's a really great process that we've become very successful at our school.
My last question is for Maureen and Karen. Where do we find the money to do what is suggested here, the paraprofessional, the increased hours for the mental health services? I think we have great decent reserves. I don't know if that's where we can get the money from, but we should start thinking about it, try to be honest. I don't know.
That's part of the LCAP process that we're starting this month. It's determining what our priorities are.
We're also going to see approval tonight, hopefully, of some money that the state has put forth for low-performing students, and tutoring will be a big part of that as well.
I would like to add that the number one priority here is to educate our student body. And so that is at the highest priority, I would feel. That is my opinion. My question to you, Mr. Wyckoff, is so the strategic math, do we have a curriculum in place? Are all the teachers on the same page? And what systems do we have in place to catch the kids that aren't getting it?
Well, the constant testing is one of the ways in the criteria. So like Nicole said, we've been working with Mark with math at the 6th grade, and we've given him our criteria, and he's been given his recommendation for our kids coming in. But our staff has created the criteria. He's been assessing the students, and what we now have is a temporary list of 6th graders, right? Just temporary. So we know how many students to count on. But at the end of the semester, he will once again assess those students based upon the criteria and make recommendations for the strategic. The same thing with every grade level as they move along. Our 7th grade teacher is assessing our students, making recommendations for 8th based upon the criteria for students who are in 7th grade. 8th grade has a different criteria. The 8th grade teacher is assessing 9th and so on. So the criteria is there in assessment. And curricular-wise, with the strategic class, our math team has been meeting. They do use specific criteria, curriculum within the class. One of them is a program called ALEX. And ALEX is geared, it's an online program to meet the needs of the students where they're at. So if proportions or percentages are struggling for one student, then ALEX will provide them instruction in that specific area. Or if fractions is another area of growth, it will provide that instruction in it too. But ALEX is one part of it, the other part is direct instructions and some of those things too.
And the second part of that question would be then, so how do we identify students that are no longer in need of strategic math? Or on the flip side, are in need of tier 3?
Tier 3 and tier 2. Well, through the testing process, and then we will determine, we'll find out if they've shown improvement. Just like our students in grade 180 who show improvement at semester, that improvement is determined by the assessment that's given to them. If they are the way they exit out is to improve above the criteria that qualifies them for grade 180. Same thing with math. If they can show on their assessment, their MI assessment, that they've improved to a point where they don't need strategic math anymore, then we will exit them. Good questions, I appreciate that. Ms. Bowen's here too, she could talk about math teachers.
Actually, I have one last comment. For many years since I've been in this community, the issue of our students failing math, is a common knowledge among the parents, and is the talk of many conversations, and it's the biggest complaint I have heard. I think that good things are happening, that we are, as a district, we're trying very hard to improve the situation, and we encourage the administrators to communicate what is happening with the parents. The parents need to know that we heard them, that we understand their concerns, that we try really hard to make this situation better.
I completely agree. We've had a couple of parent meetings, and we were supposed to have a parent meeting on the big rain night when all the Calistoga Road and Mark West, and we chose to cancel it that night just because we had teachers who were trying to figure out a way to get home. And, it was hard for parents to know. But we're going to reschedule it, and we'll have that night too again. But I completely agree with you. The more information we can provide our families, the better, because it is a partnership. The instruction that goes on in the classroom is so important. But also knowing that if we can empower our families with that information, the more they can help too, because they are anxious to help, right? They want to help their child. And there needs to be more. There needs to be more. We could actually offer classes for our families who maybe stopped their education from wherever they came from, at 3rd or 2nd grade level, to offer basic math classes here in the evenings, maybe through Napa Valley College or from other sources, so that when they go home, they can help their 2nd or 3rd or 4th grader on their math. They can be part of the process, and we as a district can start providing that for those parents. I think. Maybe I'm going to be in trouble for saying this.
So I have another question I just thought of. So where are we at changing the graduation requirements to 3 years of math? I understand our neighboring school requires 4 years. I know we only offer 2 presently, so where is that process?
I believe it will be happening at one of the next quarters. But we have been communicating to our students that that's going to happen. Well, maybe I should be doing that, but we feel it's important, our math team feels it's important, that's something we need to do. You're right. If the surrounding districts are requiring 3 years of math, 3 or 4 years of math, then that's what we should be doing too, because it's good for students. But I have to say, Ms. Craig also did some research, we only have 6 or 7 students who aren't in a third year now. They are doing it. We're not requiring it, but they're doing it themselves. I think that's really encouraging.
And so as a wish list goes in for review, is there anything else that should be added? I mean, if you're going to ask, guys, ask for it all. Because I would hate,
Remember, we have a process
I would hate
to
for our
follow.
teachers to be ill-equipped to do such a big task.
I think as we go through the LCAP process, like Aaron said, these are the things that really we need to talk about moving forward. Because what happens in the classroom is the most important thing. If we keep a focus on constantly providing opportunities for staff to participate in staff development related to the subject that they teach, I think that's a really important thing. I know our math team went to Asilomar where there was a math conference. They came back, one, very, very excited because they were able to go to targeted workshops that they felt like they were needing. We continue those things as a district, providing those. Same thing with our English teachers. They went to the Cape conference a couple weeks ago, came back really excited. They've got ideas of things they want to do different and change because they heard from other schools where change was happening in a very positive way. We are a small school, sometimes we are very isolated, and getting our staff out to those conferences, those opportunities, is really, really important. But the LCAP process will help us do that.
Good job on the library, keeping it up front.
Okay, final piece to this. When you do work around interventions, it ultimately provides you with a lot more assessment data. So we have CAST from the state, which is important, but when you're doing assessment work, you end up with a lot more data from your internal assessments when you're judging who needs assessment, who needs intervention, who needs to go in and out. That requires you to assess frequently. And we've talked about presenting that data to you because I think you find it interesting and will generate some really good conversation. Though I think part of our conversation is this might not be the best venue because there's a lot of data and it's not helpful to try to push it in, say, 5 minutes. So we are having conversations around a potential data study session where we can sit around a table together and have real deep conversations and engage with one another. But I think it's important for you to see that data and we can discuss what the proper way is.
So we just want to open up to the members to discuss who wants to present.
I've been doing high school for about 8 years, like 7 years, so I think it's different and refer to me as
I think me and Mark have been on.
And I'm open if I need to pull double duty anyway.
Oh, so I'm already on the bus. Perfect. So Mark, Abby, Matt, we want to do elementary. Okay. So we have Jeff and Matt, elementary.
Those are last year.
Oh, these are last year. Oh, okay, okay.
I'll step in at the high school as well. Need me.
So maybe we'll do Indira and Matt for elementary. Like that. And then Mark and I will stay for 8th grade and then Mark. Jeff for high school. Yeah. All right, good. So, report 7.1, principal's
So, good evening. For the principal's report for CES, as of today, we have finished our LPAC testing, which is the English Language Proficiency Assessment for California. We have scattered makeups, but we made it through 275 tests. So, as I would say in my assembly, let's give a silent cheer. We also are starting our release days. We do half-day release days per grade level where we look at data. we make our instructional next steps. Today I met with 3rd and 4th grade, and I'll be continuing with all of the grades this week. Next week I'll be meeting with the special education teachers as well. We are looking to do, unfortunately, last night I did get notified that our restorative practices parent meeting scheduled for this week is going to have to be moved. The trainer cannot be here. So we did let our parents know, and we did an all-call, and I'm trying to work on getting an alternate date for that. However, I also want to give a shout out for the people who supported our Read Across America Day today. We moved it from Dr. Seuss's birthday is on the 2nd. Because of the crab feed, the 1st really wasn't going to work because we had to get ready for that. So we moved it to the 4th. The students are encouraged to read in their pajamas, and I didn't show up in my pajamas because I didn't think you'd take me seriously doing an intervention presentation. But fun was had by all today, and we had quite a few members of the community come forward to support that. So that's what we're up to at Calistoga Elementary.
Okay, I apologize to Nicole. I was not being a very good teacher there. She was still talking, and I passed it down, and I know somebody started reading it. So it was a mistake. It was a teacher mistake. You know, finish talking and pass it down. So my board report is pretty self-explanatory. I spent a lot of time talking about the intervention, so I don't want to take too much of my time. Do you have any questions about that? Then I'll talk about this piece of paper that I gave. Okay, so about the piece of paper I just gave you. I think it's pretty exciting. It says, for the audience, we are pleased to announce that our varsity team has attained the highest goal of educational athletics, combining outstanding academic performance with interscholastic athletic participation. This is our girls' basketball. Your high school athletes have earned the North Coast Section's Scholastic Championship Team Award for winter 2019. This award is presented to the top 3 NCS varsity teams in each division or classification in each sport with the highest composite GPA of 3.0 or above. Recognizing that there are 179 schools in the NCS. This is indeed an outstanding achievement. NCS is proud to award the enclosed pennant. I'll hold it up. Championship team certificates can be downloaded and printed from our CIF homepage. So congratulations to your team members, coaches, parents, faculty, and staff who contributed to this worthwhile accomplishment. So there's not too many of these. It's really for the players and the coaches. Yeah, for me. But there's not too many of these in our gymnasium, which is pretty exciting. Let me show you. And then I just want to do a shout out, like Nicole said, this Saturday, the Seroptimus held their fundraiser, their crowd feed, and a couple things came out of it. One, a lot of money was raised for the Seroptimus, which goes directly to, a lot of respects goes directly to our students through, the reading program at the elementary school, scholarships for our students or seniors. They partially funded our challenge days this year. So the other thing too was, what I heard from a lot of the Seroptimus who were there, they usually come, early in the day on Saturday and set up. When they arrived, the whole place was already set up by our students. Our high school ASB, Mr. Ben Hartel's here, and our Seroptimus, our S-Club students. The place was all ready to go. And during the evening, I've been to fancy restaurants maybe once or so. I never got the type of service. There was kids, our students were there constantly, with crab and salad and bread. It was quite amazing. They did an amazing job that night. And of course people they tipped and there's money coming back to our students for that. So I'm really proud of our kids. And then another shout out was one day I had an opportunity to work behind, they were short staffed in the cafeteria. So I got a special outfit and I was serving. I gotta tell you, every student who came through said please and thank you. Please and thank you. And how often do you hear that when you go places? our students were really showing gratitude. I mean, just the principal, and I talked to the ladies behind it, they said, yes, every day they're always so grateful for just the things that they have. And so, just a shout out to our kids for being such amazing people, showing up on a Saturday and giving their time and effort, and then also just being amazing kids.
I have to say the same thing happened with the student arts kids, they volunteer bunch of kids that set that up. So, I'm finally realizing how to track that freely.
And they're there, same with Mr. Hartel, at every basketball game with the snack bar open. That's kind of nice when visitors come. It's good PR for our school, but your snack bar's open. They're buying this good fundraiser.
We're all talking about the excellence of the hamburgers.
Yeah, Mr. Hartel,
Campbell's
excellence.
meeting, and there's a teacher there, there's a chef, barbecue. Thank you. Okay. And Miss Eva, it's your turn. Oh, you were.
I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Eva Robledo. I am currently a senior. Just a little bit about myself. I am a member of the S Club and the Engineer Club. I also participate in tennis. It's my first year this year, which is super exciting. And my plans for next year are to attend a four-year university. I want to major in business and go to either Arizona State or UC Davis. And I just want to say, thank you for this opportunity, and I am looking forward to this experience.
So just know, you're part of the board.
I'm going to report out on LCAP goal number 1 tonight, and a little bit on the ed services side of things. Give you an update on Data Zone, which is something I don't think we've talked about a lot, but it's a program being sponsored by NCOE, and it's a digital platform where all our data will be housed. So our teachers, our admin can search it, and suppose they have to go to lots of different places. They don't have to go to one place to check a student's attendance rate, their standardized testing scores, their AP scores. We'll put all the data in one place. And it's required a tremendous amount of effort to kind of get it back in piece of all the data there, which is on my behalf, but really it's been a team effort in our office and with some of our partners that have helped us. We've been working on it for a long time, and I think we're getting close to launching it. And so tomorrow in Calistoga, the admin team will get our first look at the platform, what it really looks like and what it can do. And then we're planning for how we can kind of master it and then ultimately roll it out to our teachers and what type of professional development training they're going to do. So I'm excited to see it in action tomorrow. So a lot of work we're going to get into this space.
Okay, it's been a busy month. I think I'm entering into my second month here at Calistoga, and this last month has been crazy busy. Next Thursday, I'm going to be attending a symposium in Sacramento, and it's all about community-funded school districts. So I'll get to go learn firsthand about property tax school districts and how they operate differently from LCFF districts. On March 27th and 28th, I'll be attending a demo at Napa County Office of Education for a new financial system for the entire county. So they're looking to convert to a system called Escape. And if that happens, there will be probably a 1.5-year process of setup and configurations and prepping to convert to a financial system. That will be an experience. And then probably the last 3 to 4 weeks, I've just been busy meeting with as many people as I could meet with. I met with Sharon from the Calistoga Educational Foundation. Great meeting. We talked about processes of grants, moving forward. I met with the special ed department staff here at the district and talked about processes there. I'm learning lots of processes and how things work and don't work and what we can do differently to fix the things that don't work in the future. Carla and I had a great meeting last week about career college readiness. And tomorrow I'm going to be meeting with Ben, who's left, about ASB stuff. So right now it's starting to be budget development time. I'm going to be heavy into the process of budget development. Again, meeting with all department heads, meeting with the school principals, and figuring out our budget development process going into 1920.
Financial, with Napa County Office of Education, are we going through this again?
Possibly, yes. Digital schools is, the county, Napa County is one of 2 counties in the state that operate digital schools. The program that we're looking at to convert to is called Escape. Escape actually bought digital schools, and so Escape is now telling Napa County and I can't remember the other county that's on digital schools that they will not support the software to a county that will then support districts. So we're going to have to move in a different direction.
We see that as a positive change.
Yes.
Well, that's good. Okay.
I did it 3 or 4 times in Madera County. It happens everywhere.
It's a good change.
It is, yes.
I was just curious who is offering the community-funded districts training there.
It's through school services. It's called SF2, and it's just part of being that membership. Yeah. And this is a symposium that they do once a year. It talks about just state laws and what's coming up at the state level as far as community-funded districts. But they're doing a special presentation on newly hired staff for community-funded districts.
They bought us lunch on the table.
A nice money farm.
Under LCAP goal number 1, I was able to attend the STEAM Symposium in Santa Rosa last Friday. I was extremely impressed with our students, and I want to thank the teachers and the preparation of the kids. They did a great job. Also, thank you to Mark, who served as a chaperone. He was there the entire day. Under LCAP goal number 2, safe, healthy, and positive school environment. I see that there are some members actually in the room that I was going to speak about. I appreciate the time that both our trustees as well as the Teachers Association members spent in IBP training a week ago. It was a good 2 days for everybody, and I really look forward to employing the new strategies that we learned, and we are going to be negotiating this week. Lastly, under LCAP goal number 3, increasing parent engagement and enhancing communication. We have finally finished all of our LCAP surveys, and Alex Andry, who's the data specialist at NCOE, has been working with Paul and I to prepare the data in such a way that it's easy for everybody to access, it's visually appealing, and she is doing a fabulous job. We're very, very happy. So I will be presenting that data first to our stakeholders, meaning our parents and our staff and our students, and then I'll be bringing it to the board in April for you to review as well. So that's a big part of our LCAP process, is looking at that data. It's one piece of data that builds. That's all I have tonight. Share a lot of reports. A lot of items on the agenda.
So 8.1 consent agenda. Actions proposed for the consent agenda are being routine in nature will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the board or audience or staff requests specific items to be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. Perfect, so Jeff, motion. All in favor? Aye. It's a roll call vote. President Elshin, aye. Clerk Reed?
Aye.
Trustee Lopez? Trustee Mansfield?
Aye.
Trustee Burton?
Right.
And student representative Schaefer. All right, so we'll go into action items. 9.1, protocol for action items includes staff presentation, questions from the board, public input, deliberation by the board, and voting by the board. During public input, there will be a 3-minute timer. First, so we'll start off with 9.2, which is resolution 18-1907, which is on our staff.
So the state of California actually has 2 separate weeks to appreciate employees. There's Teacher Appreciation Week, and then a couple weeks later there's Classified Appreciation Week. And we as a district are choosing to combine those 2 and celebrate our staff all together. So we just designated that week ourselves.
So the recommendation is that
So moved.
All in favor? Okay, 9.3, resolution 18-1908, student representative induction. Sorry, I didn't bring everybody else. Following California Education Code 35.1.2, the board is provided with authorization to allow the school member to make motions that may be acted upon by the board, except on matters dealing with employer elections or certain these categories and states. So I am looking for a motion for this sentence.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Congratulations. You're on your own. Perfect. 9.4 CSBA Delegate Assembly nomination. So in December 2018, our board nominated Trustee Lopez to represent our district at the CSBA Delegate Assembly, and she's been doing an amazing job for many years. And the Board of Trustees is required to elect a representative during regular scheduled board meeting and submit a form of ballot indicating their elected representative. And our recommended action is to request approval of the nomination for CSBA subregion 3-B as presented. Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
9.5, initial sunshine proposal from CAP to the Joint Unified School District for collective bargaining negotiations. As a board, we're acknowledging receipt of the proposed contract article submitted to the Calistoga Joint Unified School District by the Calistoga Associated Teachers. And the recommendation is that we receive, that's okay.
I just had a few words that I wanted to say about our sunshine.
Okay, perfect.
In tonight's board packet, you will certainly find Associated Teachers sunshine document for negotiating the collective bargaining agreement for the 2018-19 year. I think it's important for the community as well as the board to know that we ask CAP members questions to help surface topics about topics for negotiations. The questions were initially created to generate input around ways to create stability for our school communities, support student success, and identify obstacles that impede our ability to do so. We asked the questions: what would it take for you to remain a career educator at CJUSD? What support and resources do you need to positively impact your students' social, emotional, and academic growth? And what are the obstacles to supporting your students' needs? In last year's negotiations, the district requested that we engage in interest-based bargaining, or a style of interest-based bargaining called IBB. We communicated our concern about having no training or no experience with IBB if we move forward. District's urgent insistence, I say. And this year, Pat and the district were able to undergo IBB training together. We really appreciated all that we learned for the 2 days that we spent in Eddie Hall Winery. Remarkably, 4 trustees attended, and our trainers assured us that this is a veritable engagement. Thank you. We really appreciated your presence at the training. Unfortunately, after some time for reflection, we realized that many aspects of last year's process did not fall within the parameters of IBB. For instance, when CAP raised an issue, the district stated that they would have no interest in addressing that issue and shelved the discussion. That's not really IBB. So we came to the conclusion, based on what we learned at the training, that reaching an agreement does not depend on the style of negotiations. The IBB process is not a silver bullet, but utilizing the IBB process will not in and of itself establish a trusting relationship between all stakeholders. Parity and professionalism will be the foundations of a productive working relationship between CAP and CJUSD. Upon careful analysis of both sunshine applicants, we believe both parties have clearly established their desired outcomes, which will be better served by the traditional positional bargaining process. However, this year we are asserting our rights to select members of our negotiating team, and we are prepared to utilize strategies learned in our training, such as sharing our interests with the district, listening and understanding the district's interests, and clearly communicating issues to be resolved. We are looking forward to beginning negotiations this Wednesday. CAT will be working to help create stability for our school community, support student success, and address obstacles that impede our ability to No, it was an interesting couple of days. It was good, immensely. Thank you. Thank you.
I walked away with some skills based on IDP training at home.
It affects all areas of life.
I tried it too, it just didn't work.
Didn't work. They were firm.
Yes.
Awesome. So, under that, then we are recommending that we receive and send China CAT initial bills. So, one per motion. Second. Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
And then 9.6, initial census China proposal from Councilor Joint High School District after collective bargaining negotiations. These are the proposed contract articles submitted by California Joint High School District to the CAT, which reflects the proposed changes to the current district CAT collective bargaining agreement negotiations.
We are also looking forward to beginning negotiations this week. Thank you.
So I'm just looking for a motion to.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to 9.7, memorandum of understanding for a retirement settlement. Thanks, Steve.
An action item for approval for an MOU with CAT for retirement incentive. The terms of the MOU are agreeable to both parties. There's no financial impact to the district, and I do recommend approval.
Schultz? Okay, perfect. Indira?
Second.
All in favor? Moving on to 9.8, textbook adoption and placement calculus.
We are recommending approval to adopt the National Geographic Cengage Larson AP Calculus textbook. The current text that we're using was adopted in 2006, and it was time for us to look at updating our curriculum. And discussions started this past summer, and we piloted the text in the fall of this year. And then following the pilot, we came together as a group and reviewed the outcomes of the pilot, and we had unanimous support for moving forward with the recommendation for adoption. And I'll say that if we adopt this text, it'll be a big upgrade for us. From 2006 to the current textbook, it's going to be an upgrade that will help serve our students. And funding will come from lottery dollars, and we recommend approval of this action.
So moved.
All in favor? And 9.9, hourly salary schedule.
So we are presenting a new salary schedule tonight for approval. As we look to comply with STRS and PERS regulation, our goal is for any rate that we pay our employees to be listed on a public and board-approved salary schedule. And there are some rates that fall outside of what we would list on a classified or certificated salary schedule. So the hourly salary schedule will help capture those rates. And unlike the other salary schedules, I think we can anticipate this is one we're going to bring back for approval periodically as it applies. But again, our goal is to be fully compliant with certain PERS rules, and we think this helps us get there. And there's no financial impact, and I recommend approval.
So, looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Aye.
9.10, resolution 1819, bank account for food services department. Okay, the district would like to open a checking account for the food service department. When I got here, I noticed one of the processes is the daily sales of our food service go through many hands. And I think Erin maybe had even collapsed that a little bit when she got here. I still think the process goes through too many hands. And so opening an account at West America Bank in Calistoga would allow for all of the daily sales to go directly to the bank. They wouldn't come to the district. Right now what happens is they go from point of sale to the director, to the DO, to the county, and then into the county treasury. So this would stop all of that, and if they would go directly into the bank, cash and checks, and then I would clear the bank account every month with the reconciliation process, and making that directly balance back to the point of sale system that we have for the district. So very good things about that. Cash isn't changing a bunch of hands. Things are run more efficiently, and there'll be an actual back check to the point of sale system. On top of that, if there's any non-sufficient funds in that checking account, it's a lot easier for that checking account to go back and get those funds back from the non-sufficient fund check writer. And instead of going through our general cafeteria account, it would be a lot easier process for that as well. So I'm asking for the board to approve a resolution in order for us to open that account.
So this just kind of makes too much sense.
It does. It makes a lot of sense.
Maybe we should talk about it some more.
Well, this will stop the daily sales from going to the county. We'll still have to do all of our deposits through the county, but just there won't be so much cash and checks from the cafeteria program going through the different accounts.
I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then the most exciting part of the night, 9.11. Second is from tax first. Okay, this is the 18-19 second interim report. This interim report. What is interim reporting? There are two interim reports we do every year as a district. It's the first interim and the second interim. First interim goes through our expenses through October 31st. Second interim are our expenses through January 31st. And then we also do a projected budget at the same time. Ed Code tells us we have to file within 45 days after the close of that reporting period, so that's why it usually comes to you in March. By March 15th, we have to get all this information to the county then has to turn around and file it with the state. And just a reminder, as we go through this presentation, that school district budgets are not static documents. They change constantly. They're constantly being revised and updated to the up-to-the-minute news that we know when we're changing the budgets. So these are just places I go in order to gather the information for the interim reports. And we use a variety of sources, most coming from the common message from BASC, that's the steering committee at the state level that all of the county business people go to. And they talk about each and every subject matter that goes through state or school district budgets, and then they come back out and report and say, you know, this is what we think you should be doing your interim budgets based on these assumptions. Also it comes from the state budget for 18-19 and the 19-20 governor's January proposal. There's a lot of assumptions that are being made in the January proposal that are also part of the second interim. And then of course local property taxes for our district are a big part of it as well. I always like to give the board a little bit of enrollment history, although it doesn't correlate to funding necessarily for Calistoga, it actually does correlate to our staffing needs. So you'll notice 13-14, a little over 820 students, 18-19 we're up past 860. And you probably remember that there was some hiring that was done at the beginning of this year to accommodate the needs for our increased enrolled students. So this is just a comparison of what our adopted budget looked like compared to what our first interim looked like compared to our second interim, and then I do a difference of adopted and second interim.
And mostly it's because there's so much information that changes from the beginning of the adopted budget to second interim that it's really important to be able to know what those changes are and why there are changes. So if you look at the adopted budget, it was looking like when the budget was adopted, which is back in June, the district has not closed out the books yet. The district has not spent all of their money for that current year yet they're adopting the budget for the year that's coming up. So they're making a lot of assumptions based on one-time grants are all going to be spent. Any income that we got this year is going to be spent. When those assumptions are made, that tends to increase your ending fund balance. When you move into the next year and you've now closed all your books and you're now setting up your budget again based on that adopted budget, you're making changes at first interim. That first interim budget is going to see all those changes from the closing of the books. So if in 18-19 you received a grant of $100,000 and you didn't spend any of those resources, at the end of that year it falls into the bottom line, and then in the first interim it's being rebudgeted again. So all of those expenses are then going back into the budget that came from that bottom line in the previous year. So a lot of times there's big changes, especially when you have a lot of one-time grants and a lot of local grants. There's a lot of changes between those numbers. We received a little bit more revenue, but we've also reached that $1 million. We've rebudgeted a lot of that carryover from last year's budget. The changes we've seen since budget adoption, we've received a little over, we had a decrease in property taxes of about $300,000. In talking with the county, it's because of the fires. And so the property tax payments aren't being made as high as they were before the fires. Federal funding has increased about $172,000. That's because we have high carryover amounts in Title I and Title II. We'll talk about Title I a little bit when we get to the CONAP part of the agenda. And then state funding, we've seen about $136,000 increase. Most of that is the property tax backfill. So we were receiving, this is only one-time money for 18-19. We're not expected to receive it ongoing. So it's just a one-time tax backfill for the losses from the fires. Our funding increased in local revenue due to the Cal Grants, Napa Learns Grant. Now, these were just grants that were not budgeted at the time of adoption, and then as first interim was done, those came into the budget. The other thing that was part of that was our sale from our tiny house. So that was a big local income, about $40,000. So pretty big local grants that are meant to be one-time grants and spent in the current year. On the expense side of the budget, we've increased certificated salaries by about $265,000. We have hired 4 increased positions in the district, one in the math department, English department, special ed, and then the TOSA and Title I at the elementary school. Classified salaries have increased by about $49,000, mostly due to salary adjustments and people leaving, people coming, different salaries being put into the budget. And then the benefits increase accordingly with those salaries. So I think right now, for every dollar of certificated salaries that are spent, it's about a 20% side. That doesn't include health and welfare, just the payroll benefits alone. And for classified, as a full-time employee, we're at about 24% of PERS. So an employer that you would pay $1.02 per hour is now going to be $1.24. Supplies have increased by about $102,000 with the new grants and carryovers being added in, and then services have increased by about $375,000. A lot going to utilities and professional services for things like special education. Capital outlay, this is one of those areas that it was assumed at the adoption that all of that money would be spent. It didn't get spent, so now it came back into this year, and we're going to try and spend it this year because I think we have until
June 30th to encumber it.
This is a picture of what we contribute from the general fund to other programs that are running in the district. Currently, special ed is a big cost to our general fund. I put a federal or state award there so you can just see the difference. Special ed, we only get from the federal and the state government, we only get about $688,000. Those two numbers added together are what our special ed program costs to run. So our general fund contributes about $1.6 million. Our outdoor education program, of course, there's nothing we get from the state, but that's a fully supported program. It's a great program for kids, about $78,000 a year. Routine restricted maintenance, this is a requirement of receiving any state funding for facilities through the district, and it's a 3% requirement. We're a little above 3% in our budget this year, but that's because we had the need for the different maintenance projects that were happening. And obviously, we don't get anybody from the state. Just the state says you need to take 3% of your money and you need to put it into routine maintenance, because we're going to make sure we're going to give you money to improve your facilities. You're going to be maintaining those facilities as well. Transportation, we did about $103,000 as part of our original LCFF funding, and then it costs us about $178 to run the program. So that $74,000 comes from our general fund. Child nutrition services, we do have an estimated contribution this year of $307,000. We get about $281 in state and federal funding. I have met with Ed, food services director. We're working on different ideas of how to get that $370,000 down a little bit. He's got some good ideas coming up. Ways to increase participation, ways to use more of our commodities that we get. So I think we can eventually see a decline in what that contribution is. This is just a picture of our general fund budget showing how much of it is made up of salaries, benefits, supplies, operating expenses. Currently, 73% of our general fund goes to all salaries and benefits. And that leaves about 23% for everything else: utilities, instructional supplies and materials, textbooks, other outgo. We have some cost payments that we pay out of that as well. So of course, salary benefits, our employees, our staff, we want to make sure we maintain that. Fiscal challenges. There are a few fiscal challenges that with every budget we want to be conscious of. STRS and PERS is a very big challenge right now for every school district in California. For our district, our pension contributions for this year and the next 2 years are going to run us about $657,000. Special ed costs. Our contribution to our special ed program increased by $372,000 this year. Remember, we only get so much from the state and federal government, so all of that increase comes out of our general fund. We don't necessarily always have a say in our special ed contributions because that's all based on students' IEPs, and sometimes we get students that need a lot of extra help. We currently, I think, have 2 students in private placed schools in our special ed program. We have one that could be placed there shortly, and that could be a huge cost because you're paying for that student to go to a privately placed program. Deficit spending. The district is deficit spending this year, which means we're spending more than we're bringing in, of about $107,000, and in 18-19 we're going to be deficit spending by about $29,000. And then cash flow is always a challenge in a community funded district because, and that's one reason you want to try and keep your reserves at a steady pace. Because we only get tax payments in December and April. We want to make sure we have enough cash flow to meet all of our fiscal requirements in those months right before there. November is a tough month. March is a tough month. So a good, strong reserve helps that cash flow. This is just a list of fiscal challenges that we know are financial commitments we have to meet on a yearly basis. Right now, today, because remember, budgets are not static, they always constantly change, right? So currently, in 2018-19, our total financial commitments with salary increases related to step and column, what negotiating we've already finished, our pension increases for STRS and PERS, and our special ed contribution, we're looking at about $860,000. We received about $494 in our property tax increases. So we're upside down. Same goes for the next, the next year is pretty even, and then the year after that, we're upside down again. Now, the property taxes are based on a 4% increase on year to year. And so if that comes in any differently, obviously that changes a little bit. So if it comes in more, great. If it comes in less, then we're out even more. You guys have that backwards too, sorry. Multi-year projections. We always have to submit a multi-year projection with our interim reporting periods. And so this shows just what our reserve levels are going to be for this current year and the next 2 years. The board does have a policy that states they want their reserve level to be at 20%. So we are making progress to 20%, but we're not there yet. And then our other fund status for the other funds within our district budget. Cafeteria fund will have a projected income balance of about $141,000. We do need to have a balance in there for the last couple months of the year to get reimbursements. The federal government is very slow in reimbursing cafeteria funds, so you want to make sure you have the cash to cover your costs. And then Fund 21, projected income balance is a little over $1 million. That was part of the salon sales that happened in 2018. Developer fees, we have projected income balance of about $261,000, and we actually might do a little bit better than that. It seems that developer fees are coming up quite often, and we're a little over our budget of what we expected for income. And then Fund 35, back in December 2017, we received it wasn't reimbursement, it was a funding for a state project that we had actually completed in, I think, 2012.
Yeah.
And we just got the funds in 2017. So that was part of the Prop 50 funds that were coming out. And we did receive, it was for modernization at the elementary school, I believe. And then Fund 40 is a capital outlay fund, and we have a projected any fund balance in there of $628,000 to assist with any capital outlay projects that we might have in the future. Next steps tonight, hopefully the board will approve the second interim. We will be able to meet our financial obligations of this year and the next 2 years, which is what approval would mean. And then now between now and June 2019, it's budget development for the district. We want to look at all kinds of different ways to work with the sites and the department heads on fair and equitable allocations to the different programs that we have. And then in May 2019, there's a pay revision that the governor sends out, and that's based on what pretty much comes in April taxes. They want to make sure that what they had projected, they're still on target for, and they make any changes to the projection of the state budget at that time if there's a difference. And then in June 2019, we approved the LCAP, and then we also approved the budget in 2019. Any questions from the board?
I'm just a little confused. If we're deficit spending this year and next year, how is our reserve growing?
Because a lot of one-time expenditures are coming out of the budget. So we might have something one-time this year and something one-time next year, but then they come out in the third year. So it's a lot of one-time stuff.
I have a question as well. So at our community-funded luncheon at the CSBA, they said the bet is like a 3-to-1 on a recession, and that was last year. So as projections go, and the projection from the IMF and the World Bank and the Reserve, they are all predicting a recession. When do we start to project that as well in our interim?
I talked to the county about that because I was a little nervous at putting a 4% increase in property taxes in the second year out in 2021. And Napa County is very, well, first of all, when you look back and you see during the last recession what happened in Napa County, it was not detrimental compared to what happened in the rest of the state. So property taxes as a whole still continue to be a positive. They weren't positive by 4%. They might have been positive by only 0.5% in Calistoga, or maybe close to 1%. What it's going to do for me is when I see what happens this year, because right now we're still based on projections for 18-19. When we get to June, we'll have a firm idea of what this year's property taxes came in at. And if it's better than that 300,000, that might change the projections a little bit. If it's worse, that might change the projections a little bit. But for me, I have to get familiar with trend. I have to get familiar with actuals, and then I'll feel better about going forward. I kind of just stuck with what we've been doing in the past. Napa County feels 4% is okay. Honestly, I don't know that I'm going to agree with that once I start seeing the patterns and the trends. But for now, I think for second interim, we're okay.
There has been a lot of talk on the CSBA level about, sponsoring disaster relief legislation. But, are we getting any information from them in regards to how that can help, or even if we would be eligible for it? I know that it's very specific to districts who are, enrollment-based districts, but I don't know if us as, basically a district with 5
understanding is just money that we received so far. And then we get future funding.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, so I'm assuming your motion to approve.
Motion.
All in favor? Thanks. So you're up again, so 9.12, the audit corrective actions.
Okay, audit corrective actions. I think in January, we had the auditor come and give a report of what their findings were in our audits. And we had two findings that we have to actually correct at the county level and the state level. The first finding was unduplicated LCFF pupil count numbers. And pretty much what that finding was is there were 20 students that we didn't have documentation that they were able to eat free and reduced meals, and so they were excluded from the count. Although supplemental funding does not come to us on a student count basis because we're community funded, it does change the dollar amount that in our LCAP we need to be spending for those students. So it's important to know that these numbers are correct. I met with Ed, food service director, and we talked about what process we could follow that's better than what we've been doing in the past. And so that was part of the attachment is now we're going to do some few extra steps to audit when we get to the time that those numbers are counted for our students. We're going to be doing some pre-auditing, we're going to be doing some checklists, and we're going to be verifying that who we have on one list that's getting submitted to the state is who we have that we actually have in our point of sale system in our cafeteria program. So I think we have a good plan going forward. Hopefully we won't see this audit exception again. In the meantime, Ed's going to go to some training in April to learn more about how CalPADS, which that's our reporting system. That's where we say this is how many unduplicated people or students we have. Ed's going to get trained on that and get that correlation between free and reduced lunch applications and how important that number is to go along with that CalPADS number. The second corrective action, it was, I think, just in reporting attendance for the 17-18 attendance reporting period, Palisades was left off of the P2 reporting period. And so it was just a requirement that we correct that. It was 6.2 ADA. Again, not funding related because we're community funded, but these are important numbers. They get published everywhere. We want to make sure they're accurate. We want to make sure they're right. They're part of our snapshot on CBE. They're part of our LCAP. They're part of so many different things that we do. We want to make sure that they're the right numbers. So we did file a corrective P2 report, and so that number is now correct with the state, and we just have to tell the state that, yep, that's what we did. That's how we corrected it.
So is this an approval item that we need to acknowledge? Questions? And all in favor?
Aye.
9.13, low performing students block grant.
Okay, as part of the 1819 Budget Act, the governor gave some money to school districts with low-performing students that were not an unduplicated student because we get money for unduplicated students. These were students that had low-performing test scores that were not part of our unduplicated count. And so Calistoga actually had 14 students that qualified. I think it's 14. And we are to receive a total of $27,664. We had to put a plan in place with the state. It was due March 1st. We had to get an extension just because today's the 4th and we were meeting today. This money will be used primarily for tutoring after school at the junior senior high school level. I made it a little bit more broad in what we were applying for in case we get a year or two down the road and we decide, okay, this isn't working, we want to change our path a little bit. So this plan allows us to do that as well. It's a 3-year plan, so we have to have spent the money by the end of 2021, and then we'll report again to the state on how we made those expenditures happen.
So it's $27,000.
Close over 3 years, yes. I think it was 17 you could do or something like that.
Any other questions? Okay, so moving right, Maureen, this is your final one. 9.14, consolidated application.
I know you guys just saved the best for last, right? Okay, consolidated application. This is a report we need to file with the state twice a year. It qualifies us for federal funding. We get both Title I and Title II as federal funding for Calistoga. And this is the spring reports. One of the things we had to apply for with the spring report was a waiver for our Title I dollars. We started receiving Title I dollars again in 17-18, and that was our first year after a few years of not receiving it. And we didn't receive it till late, and so we got started late with the funding. And so we had a big carryover. I want to say it was about $125,000, and we needed to. You're only allowed at the federal level to carry over 15% of your grant money, and we carried over much more than that. And so we had to apply for a waiver. We received the waiver, actually found out Friday that we received the waiver and all will be good. So now we do have to spend both last year's allocation that we had left over and this year's allocation by September 30th, 2019. So we're working on, we have a plan now going very well for intervention services at the elementary school, and we're working towards spending the rest of those dollars that were left from last year as well. And that's part of this consolidated app, is you're telling the state and the federal government that this is how you're going to spend the dollars that you're receiving.
Okay, good for a motion.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Okay, 10.1 board meeting calendar, so we have 3 upcoming board meetings. And we just want to double check the dates. And then 10.2 upcoming events and activities. We have music concert on Thursday, March 28th at the high school here in this room. Yeah.
It will not be here in March, June.
March.
I'm not so sure it's still. Yeah, just one.
Yeah.
March 29th, junior high dance. And spring break is the first week. And then 10.3 teacher agenda items. April 8th, youth designation ceremony. And that's the elementary school. And then our LCAP survey results. And that's it. We don't have any reason to leave the meeting in session.